Welcome back to 33 Conversations Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Abney, and today I'm joined by Exona, founder, Environmental Neuroscience Research Incubator. That's a lot to say. And you're also the founder of Brain Camp. Welcome, Exona, to the podcast. How are you today?
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm good. Recovering from a bit of
Yes.
a cold, but much better.
Yes, we were scheduled last week. I got kind of sick too, so it's just perfect. It's the universe works all of this stuff out
Yeah.
for you. But I really appreciate you being here and being present. We're gonna have a really amazing out of the box conversation today. I can't wait to dive in. Before we do, though, I want to begin with something that you said when we met before on our call that really stuck with me. You said science belongs to everyone. I love that. You've escaped war. You've trained at some of the most respected institutions in the entire world. And you're now building tools that connect environment, cognition, and community. This isn't just research, it's perspective. So let me start where we always begin. And that's, where are you at right now? What transformation are you in the middle of right now?
Yeah, I think that's a great deep question. I think when I started first with the sort of independent lab, it was kind of more of a necessity rather than me being super bold and creative. But I guess, those two things were a consequence of the necessity. And so currently I actually recently became affiliated faculty at Harvard as well. Which if I'm honest, it's obviously an honor, but it was a surprise to me. Because I don't know, I guess until you sort of keep working at it, like I have with the lab, and I kind of didn't really care too much about what was going on, what wasn't going on. I was just kind of really in the moment, enjoying sort of doing experiments, enjoying this new research I kind of started. And I guess this was sort of like, uh, I don't know, the universe kind of saying this is like a reward kind of thing, or you're being acknowledged that maybe if you get back down to the roots of how science is done. And I do want to say this is obviously a personal opinion. I by no means have the answer of how science should be done. I'm just offering a different perspective.
Yes.
It just felt very real to me. It felt very enjoyable. It gave me the feeling that I had when I first started my PhD. And I got to just sort of talk to people, kind of explain, what EEGs do and what the brain's doing. People had different questions. And people also had questions that I didn't think of, because everyone has their own experiences. And so it just felt like it was a whole period of a lot of learning, and I think that in itself gave me, a different perspective that then I just really wanted to share.
Love it. Maybe I told you, even though that we talked about this at the on our pre-call about what are you in the middle of right now. I told you it shifts, like even the time that we do that to now. It's so interesting about life, how it just keeps evolving and it keeps happening. But as a scientist, have you noticed like what comes loose, what falls away? What have you noticed that is like shaping how you rethink and how you
Mm,
practice and how you share at every level that you keep evolving to in real time?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess as I was going through it, I wasn't really noticing what was changing. It just felt a bit I've always joked about how, I learned English by, watching Cartoon Network, and one of my favorite cartoons was, Dexter's Laboratory. So, it's always kind of been a dream to just have my secret lab in my basement, and, I mean, I don't have that, obviously, who has a budget for that? But it kind of was that sort of feeling, I kind of just went out. I got obviously everything was done very like ethically properly. I went out and looked for an office. I just rented an office that was kind of basement like. In fact, one of my participants was on the younger side and said to me, "This kind of reminds me of Spider-Man, he was also doing cool stuff in his basement." And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Mhm.
But so as I was doing that, it just felt, I don't know, it felt like I was kind of in the more real world because as you mentioned earlier, I've had training in various different, very well respected institutes, which is also very nice. But I don't know, I've just always kind of, I guess, been a bit more of a fan of the like getting really into it where it's kind of messy and not as
Mhm.
clear cut, maybe. Not to say because, science should not be messy, should be very proper. You should have, you want good data, you want true data. But yeah, I think if you want to do human research in comparison to the mouse
Yeah, it's
research that
messy.
I've done,
Yeah,
it's
it's
very
messy.
messy.
Well,
Um,
that's authentic. That is
yeah.
real. Messy is real. It's not structured. It's just like life. It's how it's flowing through us. So I love that you see that. I love that you acknowledge that. And you're giving a face and an energy to science that a lot of people, I mean, certainly for me,
Mhm.
that I didn't know existed. It makes me excited. I'm really, I took note that you learned English from cartoons, watching
Yeah.
cartoons. And you speak really great English, so it gives me a really great
Thank
idea
you.
that instead of those Duolingo, hell, I just go find some, like, Spanish cartoons or something, right? I did
You
have a
should
Spanish
give
teacher one
Spanish.
time saying that
Yeah.
I should watch novellas because they
Exactly,
were,
that's
like, really
exactly what I was
great.
gonna say.
Yeah, she recommended that, but they were so fast and like, oh, yeah. So, I'll take another look at it, but I love your analogy about that and how that
Yeah.
you're in the basement like the cartoon too, so
Yeah.
life just is funny that way. But as the beginning of like how all of this started for you, how did growing up in Kosovo during that war space, how did
Mhm.
that interpret human behavior? How did it shape how you see human behavior?
So, we actually left, Kosovo when I was 4, so I think the war was kind of just beginning. And my parents were, fired from their jobs. Serbian police was just after people who were very educated at the time. So my parents decided to leave and escape. So I actually grew up in Belgium till the age of 18. And even though I'm very grateful sort of for the opportunities, and if I hadn't been in Belgium, I wouldn't have played tennis either. Um, I'm grateful for the opportunities, but if uh, I'm sort of really honest about the actual experience of being, a refugee, being Eastern European, it wasn't always the sort of the best experience, I'll say. And I think I talk to my husband about this a lot. I think because, for example, now we're both neuroscientists and we're creating kind of a different life for our kids. And sometimes I say, I feel like when a person goes through certain hardships, it creates some sort of um, I don't know, like an empathy that you can't really teach, because you feel like you've been down this, you've been at rock bottom and you know how it feels. And if you see someone struggling or in pain or something, I think that triggers something in you. But then obviously, I'm not going to put my kids through a war, so
But
I'm
do you
sure.
but you get to share that with them though, right?
Yeah.
Like your like the perceptions that came out of that experience. It has to translate back to how you're raising your kids in some way, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because my husband grew up completely differently, and we very much have the same values, and we share sort of same morals and stuff. So, well, it's a good thing because there's clearly a different way.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think for me personally, what it did do, I think did make me more resilient. I think it made me be the type of person who would, be okay with having a temporary lab in a basement and just kind of doing my thing because maybe it'll work out. Because I think kind of that's what I've learned from my parents, right? They decided that I should go play tennis and we'll take it from there and we'll see what happens. And then it really took off. So, yeah, I think they were also very courageous. Maybe I got a bit of that as well to sort of take a risk and kind of, you know, just do it first and then kind of see what happens. And then in itself, like tennis separately taught me how to be under pressure, um, which is now sort of a feeling that I
Yeah.
kind of enjoy. So yeah, all these things together. Yeah.
That's what's my next question was like, how does that, the pressures of, because it was pressure having that experience as a kid, like everything in
Yeah.
life is some sort of pressure. It's not, life's not really about escaping that. It's more about understanding it. And since you have this very, very unique perspective about what it
Mm.
is that you're experimenting with, share with us like what happens to our own brains when they're under pressure, like with environment or the stress or the constant noise pollution
Mm.
that we are bombarded with in every aspect of our life. Like what really does happen from your perspective of a
Yeah.
neuroscientist?
Um, I mean, specifically, I really wouldn't be able to say, but I will say once you're sort of a kid, and your brain is still developing, um those phases in the very beginning will be very, very important and will kind of shape your personality and your behavior. Obviously, parts of your character are also just inherited from your parents, and then, it's a whole nature and nurture component.
Hmm.
But I will say, you know, sometimes I guess now that I'm older, I'll see things where these are consequences from when I was very little, and this is maybe some sort of trauma that I unconsciously carried with me, and it will come out one way or another. So all I can say, I mean, is the brain will remember things. The brain will, whether you are aware of it or not, it will keep memories. There's, neuroplasticity happening at all times while you're younger. And uh, yeah, eventually, I feel like you don't really know until you're like much further into it, until your brain develops fully enough for you to be able to understand your own brain, if that makes sense. Cause it's a bit,
Like the patterns, right?
yeah,
Of when we're like bombarded with something or extraordinary loads, like a,
yeah,
major changes in life, like death or change of relationships, or right now, like, does you ever study or your thoughts on like the how our brain deals with uncertainty since all of us are so
mm,
present to the level of uncertainty? We're trained to think that it's certain, gives us a peace and all of this, but life is never really like that. And
yeah,
our conversation made me think about, was it backwards, or were we really wired for uncertainty? Or
mm,
because when I meditate, I feel, or when I calm myself, I do feel more okay with uncertainty and not knowing, and that playfulness that you were just
mm,
sharing with me. Let's just play tennis and see where it goes. Like that's uncertainty, but you were
yeah,
peaceful and it was fun and it was experimentative. So you have just this crazy unique experience of understanding the playfulness in how we process things. And I'm just curious about, because the that we are all in such a certain space.
yeah. I mean, like, so the amygdala is kind of the emotion center of the brain, and then your prefrontal cortex is kind of what will make sort of the final decisions, and it's kind of what's the word? What's the person who leads an uh an opera, not an opera, the
Yeah,
instruments,
conductor.
a conductor.
Yeah.
It's like the conductor. And so I think uncertainty will build up, I believe, because I think as kids we don't fully understand what that means, we don't fully understand consequences. That's something we're learning. But now, for example, I know from personal experience that if, something really good happens or something, a success or something, I'll be happy for a few moments. And then my brain automatically goes into a bit of a defense mode and is like, oh, but don't be happy for too long because we don't want to do that.
Yes.
And it's something I'm personally very much trying to undo. I mean, I know where it comes from, I know why it's done that, but this
I'm
is
all
again a
ears. I'm all ears. I don't know where this comes from, but I experience this all of the time. Or something
yeah,
really great will happen, and 10 minutes later, you're like, it's just like nothing. It doesn't last. That thing
yeah.
doesn't last.
I mean, these are
What is,
all things, yeah, so these are all sort of mechanisms that your brain has learned as you've gone through different situations. So in my particular case, my dad passed away unexpectedly. So before that had happened, very happy 24-year-old, going out with friends, living my best life. And then all of a sudden, he was hit by a car and it was done. Just like that, from one day to another. Thank you. And so my brain just learned after that very much, another thing that happened is I was obviously overwhelmed by my emotions, so I didn't really fully let them through. And it's been a decade now. So, slowly but surely you start realizing, oh, this is actually what I was doing at the time. But it almost happens, you're not fully aware of it at the time. It's like your brain has this it's basically there to for you just to survive. It will do anything to make you survive. Whether that turns out to be the right way or the wrong way, it doesn't matter. You just need to survive. So anxiety or being scared or not wanting to take risks is that kind of protection that you've learned because you've learned that, well, if I do something that will turn out to be bad, I feel bad. I want to avoid that. I don't want all these physiological things to happen when stress happens. So I'm going to just avoid it. I'm not going to do it. And your brain learns that by, just experiences. And that's kind of what the cool part is about environmental neuroscience is that our brain, when it's exposed to air pollution or noise or heat, it is being exposed to these sort of stressors, but we're not aware of it. And the whole sort of idea behind this, or the message I really want to bring through is damaging us, and we will probably find out in a decade. I probably shouldn't have done that, or I should have done something about it.
Is this the inspiration for your app and the wearable that you're creating?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, share more
definitely.
about like what it's this is the inspiration about it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
so
awesome.
the research part will be sort of the core of the app, and so the idea for the app is that people would just have this app on their phone. Ideally, we would make a wearable that would measure some type of air pollution and the temperature as well. For the noise, we have the microphone that's built into a smartphone, and we would want to train models on real EEG data that we do in the research part so that people would just need an app. They wouldn't have to go, wear an EEG, walk through life with an EEG and wonder what's going on in my brain. But we would train a model based on real data from real people, and then all you would need is just the inputs of a temperature, the noise, and current air pollution. And then this app could calculate for you based on the research that we have. Currently, this is what your brain is exhibiting, which would be the acute level. And then the chronic part would be we're going to collect your data over a week, a month, 2 months. And then we can tell you if you continue like this, this is chronic exposure. This is the damage you're doing. And you can limit that. You can do something about it. It's not it's more to be informative. And if you for example live next to a train station and you're like, well, I can't move right now. Okay, noise canceling headphones, you know, that could help for a short amount of time. Or if you need to do something more productive, or if you need to sleep, wear what are those called? Earbuds,
Yeah,
something like that, And you might think it's so small. It's like we were saying earlier, you might think meditation's not doing anything for you, but once you keep doing it for a while,
it
you
does.
will
Yeah.
see the benefits.
So is it you believe it's possible though from I want to make sure I'm something's starting to occur for me. So you said that our brains are wired for survival. I know that's ontologically, but you're from a neuroscience point of view, that's what you know to be true too, like for all of us? And if so, is that changeable? Or is that what you're experimenting with?
Is it changeable for it
Like our
to, like,
brains, is
the
it possible to
priority
really
not to be
change?
survival?
Yeah, like at a like control alt delete. Is there a way to reboot ourselves,
Yeah,
or is
so
that
I
just a pipe
think
dream?
no, neuroplasticity is a very real thing. It's just once you reach a certain age, by the age of 30, your brain is fully developed, and it's kind of like you can imagine that all the circuitries and all the if you imagine like an electric circuit, all the pathways, all the things are all set. So if you would like change one small thing, you'd kind of have to rewire a whole bunch of things. So it's very difficult, but it's not impossible. People obviously, that's what, for example, in therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy is you want to create new habits or just in general, when you are creating a new habit, I don't know if you ever heard this, but usually it takes about 30 days. That is
Yeah,
you
yeah,
that's neuroplasticity. You're kind of adding
okay.
something, you're learning something new, you're giving yourself a different pathway. So it is possible. The tricky thing is just it's difficult.
Well, I've been a coach for many, many years back in the day.
Mm,
But that's how I quit smoking. It's how I really made all major changes in my life was this premise of if you can do anything for 3 days, just white knuckle it. You could do anything for 3 days. If you could do it for 3 days, you could do it for 3 weeks. If you could do it for 3 weeks, you could do it for 3 months. And once that happens, that the something about that allowed me to literally change eating, changing my diet, those different things. All really everything that I ever transformed for real in my life
mm,
was done like that.
yeah.
But so before 30 though, so it's actually possible if a child it's easier for them, you know, the earlier the better, right?
Yeah,
That we
definitely.
oh,
So
that's a really
one thing
pleasant thought for me. That's
yeah.
a pleasant thought for me, because you think about all the children that go through all of these horrific things, and I recently had a guest on that had went through a traumatic thing as a child, and one of the questions, it was heartbreaking. One of the questions I asked him was, "Is there a day that you ever don't get to think about this?" Because it's been like
Mm,
30 years since this very horrific thing happened, and he's like, "No, I'm on 12 different medications just to exist." And it broke my heart. I was like,
yeah,
if there's a miracle out there, I said, I hope that one day you wake up one day and that's not the thing. But
yeah.
you're causing so many things to fire in my own head about like, yeah. Um,
I was
wow,
also
this is
gonna say,
really, really powerful.
yeah, with my husband, we talked about, when we have kids, the first thing I want to teach my kids is meditation. That's the core thing I wanna teach them because I know I struggle with it. I just, I think I have different forms of it. Like sometimes, I'll clean the kitchen or refold all the clothes in our closet. For me, that's a form of sort of
It is.
meditation because I'm focusing
Yeah.
on one thing and it's very calming. But I have experienced throughout my life that if you can it's not necessarily control, but if you can allow yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling, experience the things, and not spiral or panic or like sort of lose sight, I think that's the most important thing. Once you can do that, I think you could pretty much do anything you want in life because, life is ups and downs. And I have found now that obviously we feel it with relationships, we feel it with work, with hobbies, experiences, but I think the core
To
idea
avoid that.
is
Yeah.
yeah, but the
To
core
avoid
idea
that.
is you want to just know how to deal with these ups and downs. I think that's the hallmark for me for a strong person. And I'm not
Wow.
there at all.
Well, it's so interesting that you said that because, like, my dad passed in 2024, and right after that, it was like the shell shock of that.
Mm,
I mean, all of our parents that pass at some time, everybody passes away, but it's like it's something different, obviously when it happens,
mm,
that. And it affected me in a way where meditation was one of those things that was in my life as uh, I would do it, I wouldn't do it, I would do it, it was just a loopy thing and it never really stuck and it never really made sense to me. So I just took 3 months and I took a meditation course to become actually certified to teach meditation. And it was incredible.
mm,
I'll share that course with you if you're interested.
yeah.
But it's the guy that runs Meditation Magazine.
Mm,
And he's in New York too. Or you're not in New York, are you?
I'm in
You're in
Boston.
Boston. Yeah.
Close
So
enough.
it is actually pretty close. So the point being is that changed the trajectory of my life. And it led me to where this podcast is happening. Like it really came out of that hard break and understanding that folding your laundry is meditation, cleaning your
Mm,
space is a meditation, that really your whole life can textually be a meditation. It's
yep.
always this process of bringing yourself back to center, even when the darkest stuff is happening. Doesn't say that you don't go down whatever rabbit hole you're going down, but there's an awareness or a bell that kind of goes off. That's like, no, I remember my center, and like, no, that's not what this is. This is about. And it doesn't matter what's happening in the chaos. I can still be present and still inside of it and become that observer. I often,
Yes.
like being a scientist and an observer, that you have that built into your neural net about even the way you speak and how you have that state. When I'm, for me, one of the biggest awarenesses that I had after my dad passed was this moment where I realized when I was the observer, because the pain was so much that I
Mm,
felt myself like outside of myself observing, and I felt like a literal avatar. Uh,
mm,
and it gave me compassion and it created this space, which I've heard many people talk about.
yep.
But once I felt that space that I wasn't identified with my body, my life shifted in a major way. And I've still observed that space. Do you see that when you're you have to create that space with what you're doing in your lab and in your life and
Mm.
with your work that you're doing, right?
Yeah, it's funny how um I can definitely create that space for others, and then when it comes to myself, it's so much harder. It's when I did therapy, there was a book that therapist gave me, and it was exactly this because he gave me. I told him I don't really like self-help books. I don't really like to read them. And he said, "Okay, I'll give you this one." Because usually I would go in there and I would start saying like, I don't really fully buy into this. I don't know how words can change, blah blah blah. But then I would go into it more from a neuroscience perspective. And for some reason, that's what helped me buy into it. And so this book was similar where it starts talking about how, kids, how they develop words and how your brain starts to develop connections between if you see a picture of a dog and you see the word dog, it will start making the connection of, okay, this is dog. And then it will hear the sound woof. And then it will connect it to the word dog, but automatically it will also make the connection to the picture. And that kind of happens by itself, even if you have just one set of information. So all these words are connected. And the one thing that humans apparently are very good at doing is creating a relationship out of any any words at all. Like if I said,
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know, dog and chapstick, you could say, my dog ate my chapstick. You will find a relationship no matter what, because that's what our brain
Or
does.
have your chapstick before you go jogging. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
And
totally does.
so
We're
that's what it's doing.
storytellers. We're
Yeah.
storytellers. Like
So
that's
that's what it's
the
doing when you have anxiety, when you are worried about something. It is creating a
creating.
relationship because that is what it does. And
Yeah.
so that, for some reason, made a whole lot of sense to me. And then it was exactly this where was this exercise where you think of yourself sitting by a river, and then whatever it is that you're feeling, whether it's anxiety or something else, you imagine that you're taking that feeling and you're putting it on a leaf. So it's like the way I imagine it is like the leaf is like a little TV or something where I'm
Hmm.
seeing myself be sad or whatever. And then you just kind of watch the leaf go down the river. And at
Yeah.
first, I genuinely thought, I mean, what is this? Just I was like, this is some BS. Also, obviously being, Eastern European, I was like, no.
Yeah.
But I was obviously in like a very desperate time and I thought, whatever, why not? And so I started doing it more often. And for a while, like my husband and I were joking, all I would say all day long is and let go, observe and let go. And so
Yeah.
we would start watching, like, I don't know, some crime documentary or whatever. And I was like, you know what this guy needs? He needs to observe and let go, is what he needs to do. But it became a thing. And, you know, it worked. It's like, I want to
Love
be like,
that
I'll be
yeah,
damned. It worked.
yeah.
Because all of a sudden it became a habit. It became just something I did. And even if, because sometimes it's like there's multiple parts in my head of myself, even if I'm conscious that I am doing it and part of me thought this is BS, I'm still doing it. And
Doing
now the
it.
other part is like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to listen to you because it's working. So why am I trying to actively sabotage myself?
Life is so freaking crazy sometimes. But
Yeah.
that's literally why I make my bed every day, because that's my way of, like, doing something the same every day as soon as I wake up to remind me that I did something, and I can't stand it if it's not yeah. I this is such a fascinating conversation. Not that I wasn't expecting it, but, like, I didn't expect it to be so in my body like it
I
is
can
now.
come
So thank
back
you.
as like someone else. I'll just wear a wig or something.
Question. What about your life right now
Mm,
feels more aligned than it did when you were just starting out?
mm. Starting out as in my PhD or like
Yeah, just
last year.
starting out in your career. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna be doing this, but like what feels more aligned to you now, right now, than it did when you
Yeah.
started?
Well, I want to say that I think my whole life I've basically been looking for someone's approval, whether it was, in tennis, you wanted to win some important tournament, in academia, you want to be part of some, well known university. You don't just want to be anywhere. You want to be able to say, I went to these schools.
Mhm.
And it's that you want to be able to put stuff on your LinkedIn and people be like, oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
And now I can't say obviously that it's fully gone because, I feel like once you do achieve these things and once you kind of get a taste for it and you see yourself at a certain level, it's then kind of hard to pretend that you don't care about it because I just don't think that's true. But the point I'm at now is now I'm ready to, I just really want to build something. I'm still pretty junior as a scientist. I don't have that many papers or anything, but I'm ready to like really work for it. I really would love to be like a pioneer of this field. I mean, there's already a lot of very good scientists doing great experiments and research out there, but I want to feel that. I mean, it's a little bit of an addiction, right? Once you've played sports like that, like I want to feel that again. I want to compete again. And I just want to find sort of a space to do that. I no longer care, like, where it's at or, whatever university. I want like just a space where they say, we want you and do whatever you like. And then I just want to be like, all right, let's go.
No doubt that that will happen for you.
I hope
I'm
so.
yeah. It's really an honor to meet you and, like, your energy, and I just know, I've been around the planet long enough to know that you have a lot of extraordinary things in your future that you're
Thank you so
doing for
much.
humanity. I know it.
Thank
Are you
you.
ready for your closing question?
Yeah.
Okay. If someone listening to us feels disconnected from science or overwhelmed by their own environment, what do
Mm,
you want them to understand about their own brain and their own power?
yeah. I think in moments like that, your brain might be telling you a few lies about yourself, but in a way to try and protect you from feeling more hurt. So, it will be telling you like, "Oh, don't try this, don't do this because if you get rejected again, it won't feel nice." I think what helped me many times because I will say I've failed more times than I've succeeded, which I think sometimes people forget because you only need to
Yeah.
succeed once, but you can
Yeah.
fail like hundreds of times.
Yeah.
What helped me when I was really down is trying to find something that I'm good at or like I really enjoy. So that's part of sort of why I have the nonprofit. It's or brain camp, it's very sort of straightforward. I go back home, I teach students about neuroscience. They're my people. I love my country, get to speak my own language. That makes me happy and it gives me something. It's like a very small step, but that's how you start building yourself up again. You
Yeah.
can it can be volunteering. At some point when I couldn't go back home and I was living in New York, I did this thing where we went with a group of people and we were trying to give out food to like homeless people. It wasn't particularly um it's not something that I've thought about doing. It's just in that moment I was like I don't feel like I'm useful. I don't feel like I can really do much right now. And then I just thought, well, I guess the least I can do is, walk over with a piece of bread, just do that.
Yeah.
And
Something.
that person in that moment was very grateful, and I'll carry that with me. Like very, very small things. Or it doesn't have to even be volunteering, do something for your
Just small
friend.
step.
Yeah. Or for yourself at the end of the day. I tend to not be very self loving in those moments. So sort of I rather do like a service. I don't know how to
Service.
describe it. Yeah.
Service is very powerful. It puts you outside of that context, and that's a beautiful thing to share, and that answers that question. I appreciate it. Just really mind-blowing conversation, literally. I just wanna thank you so much, Exona, for bringing back science in a way that we can relate to it, giving it context, showing us how to interface it with the community, and that it's a lived experience, not just some people are doing in a lab somewhere,
Mm,
which is I think most of us have it. That's how it lives for us and not connected it. You've made it experiential for me today in a way that I've never felt before. So I really, really appreciate it. 33 conversations exist to question inherent systems, explore what becomes possible when we practice things differently, which you've been an amazing example of today. And your work reminds us that understanding ourselves is not separate from understanding the environments that we create. Go out today and learn something new. Look at your world as if you were the observer, the scientist, and see what it reflects back to you. And experiment with a new conversation that you've never had with somebody that you've never met. And we will see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.